Hey everybody, this is Hugh and I'm back with the third and what should be the last video in this series. So we've done a video on laying out an interior PDF for a print-on-demand paperback using InDesign and pasting your manuscript in from Microsoft Word. Also did a video on making edits to your ebook using Calibri and Sigil, both free programs you can download. So this last video is on your book cover. When you upload your book to CreateSpace, you upload two different files. You upload an interior PDF, which we already showed, and you upload an exterior PDF file. So this one will be in color, and this one's generally black and white for fiction. So how do we create that cover image? Well, in InDesign, it's instead of opening a template, we're just going to create a new document. We're going to do everything from scratch. So right here, choose new document, and this gives us some options. The number of pages we're going to do for this is 3, and that's the 3 pages we're setting up here is the front cover, the back cover, and the spine. And you can do this as one wide page and lay your spine in using guidelines, but this is a lot more exact to be able to center your text on the spine. So I highly recommend this. Make sure facing pages is checked. And down here, this is where it gets tricky because this is showing the size in pica, and we are going to be working in inches. We're going to let InDesign do all the converting for us right in here. If I type in 5 inches, for instance, and hit tab, you saw how quickly this converts. So we're working in inches. Now, we need to think about Amazon has guidelines for creating your cover image, and it's this. It looks like a really complex formula here, but it's quite simple. If you look up here, it'll tell you what each of these stands for. This bleed, this 1/8 of an inch of bleed. Bleed is basically, you want the cover image to be a little bit bigger than it's going to be trimmed to, so that if the blade is just a little bit off when it trims this cover image, there's always going to be art all the way to the edge. Without this, if you try to do it exact and then it was a white page on the outside, if the ink didn't bleed beyond your boundary, then anytime it was off just a fraction, you would get a cover that had a sliver of white on the edge. And this is what does happen when you don't have bleed. So all the way around this one image we're going to create a wide image that has the back, the spine, and the front. It's as if you unglued the spine of your book and laid it out. Around that entire thing, there's going to be a border of 1/8 of an inch, and that's our bleed. So when we lay this out, the back cover needs to be 1/8 of an inch wider. The front cover needs to be 1/8 of an inch wider, and the height needs to be 1/8 of an inch wider on both sides, which makes it 1/4 inch or 0.250 inches taller. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but all it means is for a 5x8 book, which is what we're going to do for the Shell Collector, instead of the width being 5, it's going to be 5.125 inches. And if you were doing a 6-inch wide book, it's just 6.125. You're just adding that 1/8 of an inch of a bleed to your back and your front cover. For the height, since we're doing 5x8, it'll be 8 plus the 2 bleeds, so 8.25. The O's not necessary, but just so it has the same number of decimal places and it looks familiar, so you understand exactly what you're putting in here. So that's your height, and you can see. Oh, see what I did? I didn't type inches, so that made it much smaller than this would have That's why the orientation changed. This would have been a very wide and not very tall document. So make sure you type in inches here. And you can see this orientation, this portrait orientation lets me know that's correct. For the margins, I'm going to change this to, so a quarter inch is just 9 pica, but again, or an eighth of an inch. If you put this in manually, you'll always get it right. So, and the reason for that, that'll show us the bleed on our document. We can see what's gonna be cut off from the trimming. So that's it. 3 pages, facing pages. We put this in inches and got all that sorted out. Perfect. I'm gonna hit OK. And okay, well that looks like a front cover. Where's the rest of our cover? Well, if you open up the pages menu, you can see here these other 2 pages are down here. We want them all on the same page. So there's a couple things we have to do to make that happen. We need to I hope this isn't getting completely cut up on my window here, but there's this option here, allow document pages to shuffle. We need to turn that off, and that will allow us to drag this page wherever we want it. You can drag these 2 pages up. It's easier just to drag this guy down. You can see that black bracket shows where it's going to be. So I just do that, and then I've got my spread here. Of course, that's not how thick our spine is going to be. We need to make this thinner. So over here, you've got the Pages tool. You can see it default selected this center page. I don't know why. I'm the same reason I Control-C to copy things to clipboard like 5 times before I feel like it's really in there. I click this again just to make sure I've got this selected. And we want to set the width of this. And this is where you start having to do some calculation. So if you look, and I'm going to have this link here, but if you just search how to create a cover PDF for your book, this CreateSpace page is one of the top 3 results. So right here at the top on calculating the spine width, I always do cream paper. I think it's night and day how much better and more professional cream paper looks in an interior. I never do the white. I've seen the white, so I know what it looks like. I know that the cream looks that much better. So I always do the cream paper, and it's every page is this thick. That's in inches. So what we need to do is multiply the number of pages in our book by this number, and that gives us our spine width. So pull up our calculator and put in 0.0025. Now you're going to get the number of pages from that interior you've done in InDesign. That's going to have your total page count at the bottom. And don't look at the number of pages. Don't look at the number of pages down here at your page number. When you're in InDesign in your interior file, look right here. This will tell you exactly how many pages, and it'll take into account the title pages, blank pages, your acknowledgments, all that stuff. So look right there. And for the shell collector, it's 270 pages. So I'm going to 0.0025 times 270. And this is my spine width in inches. And this is an important enough number that you can leave it in your calculator, but I'm gonna write this down or jot this down. All right. So back in InDesign, we want that center page to be 0.675 inches wide. So we've got the center page selected, and what we want to do is resize just this one page. And the best way to do this is go up to Pages, and again you can see which one you've got selected here. You've got to select the center page, and then down here this is your page resize button. If you hover over this, it'll tell you that that's what it is. Let's see. Well, it should pop up on your screen. Anyway, that's the page resize button. And none of these are going to work. We're going to use custom. And again, if you need to remind yourself, you've got your little note here, your 0.675 inch spine. So we're just going to put that in for the width. 0.675 inches. And we're going to leave the height the same. When we click OK, we're going to see that this has now created our spine. Easy peasy. Now, another way you can lay out your book, also, if you want this to be in inches up here, just right-click this ruler, and I like inches decimal, and this lets me see, you know, that it starts at this 0. Don't forget you have 1/8 of an inch bleed here, but so 5 1/8 of an inch is your back cover, and the same for your front cover. I think it helps to see this. You can do it left and right. Just to look, see, there's your 8 1/4 inch height. So that's your book. Now, another way you can do this, you could have set this up as a single page, and then by left clicking in this ruler and dragging out here, you can create these guidelines, and you could use the ruler and kind of eyeball and lay out a spine. What I like about, hit delete to get rid of that. What I like about using this setup is that I know for certain that this is where my spine is going to be, and it's going to allow me to put text in that spine so that it is centered. So this is basically, you know, all you've got to do. If your cover art was designed by someone for you, you could bring that in with just hitting File and Place, and you could place the cover art right here, and you know, then have a base for your PDF, and then you can add your text and stuff like that. I'm going to show you, and this is going to be embarrassing because I'm going to try to create a cover, some cover art live on the fly here, but I'm going to show you how you can do this with your own photography or your own source image. So I'm going to show you the way I think about cover. I used to do my own cover art, and I would take photographs specifically for cover art. And I want to show you a mistake you can make when, especially as you're thinking of yourself as an ebook author, as some, you know, only doing ebooks. This is the kind of photograph you might use, or you know, for the shell collector, this would be a great photograph. There's plenty of space here for text. The problem is it's in this portrait orientation, which does not work for a print book. There's no room for the back page. I would have to splice images together, which never looks as good. So when you're taking a picture and with the cover art in mind, you want to take it with this sort of a layout, so that, and this could have been, let me see, there's a way to flip this horizontally. You know, if it was like this, and you really needed the cover to be on the other side, then you can always do exactly what I just did. Even if you're using an old image, you can always swap the front and the back cover around just by doing that. But what's great about this is I can kind of imagine my front cover here, but I have plenty of space for my back cover. And nope, I don't want to save changes. So for the shell collector, I've got this picture of Amber here, and I know I can get the model's permission for this shot. And you know, this was just me opening up one folder in my pictures. I could, you know, really hunt and find, you know, shots of us picking up shells and or go and take a picture just for this cover. But just in my browsing my photos, I found what would work for me for cover art here. So thinking about your cover while you're taking your photos is very helpful. Just thinking about, here's my front cover. I'm going to have plenty of room for a spine, and a back cover. So what I want to do is we haven't talked about layers much in the other video, but this is very important with your cover art. You can see this representation. You've got this dark panel and then a transparent layer laid on top of that. Well, that's how layers work. You're just stacking elements on top of each other. And this cover art is going to be your lowest layer. It's the very bottom layer. And all the text and the UPC code is all going to be on top of that. I think it's very useful to get in the habit of naming your layers so that they're easier to work with and recognize. So for this one, I'm going to just call it the cover art. And what we want to do is take that image that I just showed you and place it right on top of here. So we'll go to File, Place, and here's that image. Click it, click Open, and just like we looked at in the other video, it's going to allow me to click this wherever I want. Now the size is not going to be perfect. I could use this size if I wanted because there's plenty here for me to cut off, and maybe I will. If I scale this down, I would get more of the image in, but it would also make her a little smaller, and I kind of like that size. So I'm gonna keep that. Though if I needed to change it, I go to Object, Transform, and Scale, and I could make this smaller so that it fit either horizontally or vertically. Probably like I don't know, 93. This would fit that the document image, this black line that I've set up. But I think I'll leave it large. What I do want to do though is take these corners and drag them to the edge of the document. This isn't deleting any of that image. It's all still behind there, but it's changing the window that it can fit in, and it just helps me see my the outlines of my book a little bit better instead of seeing all that extra stuff that's not going to get printed. So this is like, I haven't gone into Photoshop and I could go in there and maybe wash the colors out so the image fades. There's a lot here I could do, but instead I've just dropped an image in, and just looking at this, I've gotten very lucky with this because that almost looks like phi there with the percentage of space with the horizon. So filling this up with the title is going to look really good. And here's where I want to talk a little bit about my philosophy with book cover art design. And it's all book cover is all about typography. The art, we spend way too much time, I think, looking at the art. It's all about great font work, and I see a lot of really poor typography on books, and not just self-published books, but in general. But in self-published books, there's just way too many fancy fonts and scripts used. You really just need nice, big, bold, blocky text so that it's very easy to read as a thumbnail, and I think it looks more professional. So and I don't want to spend a lot of time doing this because you can fiddle with this all you want. I'm just going to show you how I would do this. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this title author. I'll have them on the same layer, and you can see that it created on top of cover art. If this was beneath it, anything I put on here you would not see because the cover art is on top of it and it covers the whole thing. You can just drag and drop these in whatever order you want. I'm also going to lock cover art right now. I'm not going to make any more changes to this, and this now I can't even select it, and it keeps me from being able to drag it or move it out of the way. It's very handy, and it's also why it's useful to name your layers so that I know what I'm locking, and I can make things visible and invisible just by clicking this, and I know what I'm controlling. So title author, I'm going to go over here and choose this text tool, and this allows me to drag a text box. Now, one mistake I see a lot is that people will create a text box and they type out the whole title. Take advantage of the fact of all the control you have here over typography and InDesign. InDesign is brilliant for doing text. Photoshop is not great for it. This is why you want to come into InDesign to do all your text work. You could do this photo work in Photoshop, but then save it as a TIFF file and import it in. But instead of doing the cover all in one word, I think it's much better to treat each word as its separate element. So the shell collector, I've got 3 words to work with. So I just typed shell in here. Let's go up here and make this really big, so 80 points. I have no idea if that's where it's going to end up. I'm just choosing something. And a great way to go through different fonts is just to click in this box and then hit the up and down cursor. And this will allow you to go through. Now, if your box is, if your font is too big for that box, you won't be able to see some of them. Each font is has a different scale. So you can just go through and look at your different fonts, but stay away from stuff like this. That's about as fancy as I would get, and don't settle for what it shows you. For this, I don't like the proportions, so I can stretch the width of the actual font right here if I want. This is where you're going to make your font yours. Let's see, what's a good, go to popular standard. This is one that I use a lot. It's just big and bold, and I like that. Not big enough. Let's see. Let's make it that big. All right. And just so it doesn't look too standard, I want to stretch this a bit. Let's say like 115%. Yeah. And I'm also going to change the kerning just a tad, just a little space between them. So I like that. So I think the black could work for this cover, but I'm going to play around with the color just to show you. And I think if maybe a dark blue would also look good here. It's hard to, you can't really preview this while you have it highlighted. It's going to do the opposite on the color on the color wheel, but I can look down here, and I want something that'll contrast with this sky. So and I can control these individual colors and make this as dark or as light as I want. But let's look at that. I think that's might be a little too dark, but again, we're just throwing this together really quick. The reason I set this color up first is I'm going to use copy and paste quite a bit, and so I'm going to Control C, the word shell, and then just come down here and hit Control V, and this gives me another box with all the same. That way I don't have to choose the font and the color, and I don't have to scale the height. Let me show you a handy thing here too. When I have this selected, if I double click this corner, it's going to make this box just as big as it needs to be. It's going to snap it to the size of the word, and that's useful so that don't have overlapping boxes. It's easier to grab stuff and move it around. So I'm going to make this the word collector. Oh, I should also say, put on caps locks when you cap lock when you're doing this sort of thing. Covers just look better all caps, I think. So it's a habit I use. I think you should do it too. We're gonna make this smaller so that it fits on the front cover. It might be still a little too wide. I'm gonna leave it this tall though, and maybe play with the scale this way. And again, I'm going to double click that corner just to make this box only as big as it needs to be. And a lot of this, it's just feel, lining up one side of the word, filling up this space. I'm leaving room here maybe to put a blurb across the top. You can either be what another author said, or if if you've hit a bestseller list and you want to put that up here, if you just want to put the the latest novel from the author of, and then the last book you've written, just having that little bit of line up here, and I can add that really quick and show you, really helps. And then I'm going to put in the word the. I'm going to just try to do something a little different with that. And again, this is just using the different size for these guys. I think makes it look like you've put a little more creativity and thought and care into it. So it's better to do design here rather than just choosing a fancy font and then typing it all out and letting the design program control the spacing and the layout. It's much better to do all this individually. So made this a little smaller, and I'm going to do something wacky here. I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to hold down Shift so that it does it sideways for me. My cover artists are having conniption fits right now watching me do this. So that's just quick and dirty. But I think having this big bold font already makes this look really acceptable to me. Now don't forget, we're also doing the author on this layer, so I can keep hitting Control V and paste in that word shell, which really helps. I think for you don't want to use too many fonts on a cover. I think it's okay to use a different font for your title and your the author name, but I wouldn't make them too crazy different. Another sans serif, kind of a blocky font. Let's do this and tighten it up. So make this much smaller. And again, I'm going to copy this, Control C. I'm also going to do a little trick here of double clicking this guy just to make that easier to manage. And I'm going to paste that in. And the reason for doing this separately is then you can play around and see if how you want this laid out. If you want it how you want it designed. Maybe something like this. Maybe take this one up a little more. Again, I'm not going to try to make this perfect. I would spend literally like a day doing this before I was happy with it. And maybe this you want, let's see how that looks in black. Yeah. I think we started with too dark of a blue to begin with. Space that out just a little. Anytime your text disappears like that, you can just, again, double click that. So very basic cover, but I think it already looks pretty good because we've got nice big bold text here. We've got a nice cover art selected. This is basically a 10-minute cover. You can make this a lot better. One of the things I would do with this is create a drop shadow effect, and I would do it manually. There's ways to do this with the effects right here. You can create drop shadows. There's all kinds of cool effects here you can do. But I kind of like this manual way of creating a drop shadow. I'm going to show you that really quick. I'm going to create another layer, and this is going to be drop shadow. Oops, still got my caps locks on. And the shadow, of course, is going to be beneath the element. So here's the title author, and here's the drop shadow. And what I want to do, move this so you can see it. I'm going to grab all of this, all of these elements, and I'm going to copy them. Control C. So I held down the Shift key and clicked each one of these, and that selected them all. Control C copies them all. And now I'm going to go to drop shadow and paste them into that place. I'm actually, matter of fact, I'm going to lock this so that there's no way when I paste this in that I'll grab the wrong thing. I'm going to paste in, and when I hit Control V, see how it puts it all in at once? If I grab any of that and move it, it moves it all together. So with all of this selected, as soon as I paste it in, I can go up here to Object and Group, and now that's going to all stay bound together. Now if I triple click in here and highlight this, I'm going to change all of these to black color. Might be a way of doing that all together, but I'm not aware of it. Now, because these are grouped, when I guess not. Let's see. Object. Well, they should all move together. All right, I'm going to have to select. Oh, there's the group. Okay. Now, when I move these guys over here, they should all move together, and I can use the arrow keys left and up and down and right. And the advantage here of doing this manually, I know that looked like a lot of work, and you could create your drop shadow with that tool and even manage the size and the spacing of it. What I really like about this is how fluid the design process is. And I believe it's the control button. If you hold down the control button, now when I move the arrow, it's moving just a tiny bit, so much that I have to move it like 10 times before I can even see the effect that it's having. And that just gives the text a little bit of depth to it. Again, my cover artists are flipping out because this is like nothing like what the quality that you would get from hiring someone like Mike Corley or Jason Gertley or Ben Adams or any of those guys. But for demonstration purposes, I think it's useful, and it's also useful, I think, to play around with this yourself to see what works and what doesn't work, so you can communicate with your cover artist and let them know what you like. All right, so that's our front cover. Basically, when we get the PDF, we could create a JPEG out of this, and we could crop this front cover out and use this as our ebook. But we've also left room here for our print edition, for our spine and our the back cover. Okay, back in layers, I'm going to lock that drop shadow down. I like everything we have here. I'm going to create another layer, move it to the top. I'm going to call this spine. So this is going to be the text that goes along our spine. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I can drag a text window with the text tool and type out the shell collector and then the author's name. And just like before, I can highlight all of this and go up here and look through some different fonts, pick one I like, make it bigger, maybe something like that. I would probably make it blue to match. I'm going to hold down Shift while I rotate this, and you can see here's where the advantage of creating that spine really helped, because it allowed me to center this. And even though the printing process could create a little bit of variation here, in general all of these are going to be centered now. And I don't know if I like that. It's so hard to do this quickly when I really wanted to do it well. I really think the simpler the font, the more professional it looks. And I think we went a little too, if I had to do that font over on the cover again, I would, oh look at that, it changes it all for me. That's useful. Yeah, but I'm not sold on that. All right, I'm not going to play with it too much. Another thing I could do here is, it's kind of a nice little trick. I used to do this with my books, and I've not done it lately, but you can create a little icon to go with your publishing imprint that you've probably created, your LLC or your however you're handling your business structure. And this is where you could put that little font. I've got one for Broadreach Publishing. I just haven't put it on the last couple of books, but nice little touch to make it look professional. So that's another layer, your spine. I'm going to lock that down and create another layer. I'm going to call this the back text. Try to anyway. And again, select your text tool, drag a window here, and this is where you can write your blurb, whatever you're going to put here. And you can, all the tools that you use for your interior layout, they all apply here. You can change the spacing between lines, be creative, make the first line bigger and bolder. Don't just type it out like a paragraph. Type out several paragraphs independently and move them around a little bit. Just whatever looks good to you. Break up the flow. So you can play with that. Now, this is the last thing I want to show you, because this is kind of a tricky thing. You can upload this to CreateSpace, and they will put the UPC code on there for you. I like to do it manually, because I think the default size they use is just too big. So I'm going to create my own UPC code, and I'm going to put it on its own layer. And the first thing I'm going to do here to create that code, I'm going to come over here and select this box, and I don't want it to have a line. There's two elements to a box. There's the outline, and then there's the fill. And I do want it to have a interior fill. So let me show you. Let me draw a box first and just show you. This is about the size that I want my UPC. And you can see right now there's no line and there's no fill. This is just kind of a guide box. If I wanted this to have a border, I can click this and choose a color. Like down here, I'll get a black. And now my box, it's hard to see because it's also, let me make the width of the point thicker. So you can see now it has a line around it. I don't want that, so I'm going to make sure that this is selected as none. But I do want I want this to be filled with white. So right now you can see there's no fill. I'm going to choose paper, which will give me a white box. And this is where I'm going to lay my UPC code. Now, how am I going to generate that? Now, I'll have the link for this in the blog. This is a great tool online. Again, another nice place to support once you start selling some books. This is an online barcode generator, and it works. I've been using this since my very first paperback back in 2009. And it was cool creating my first one and taking it to work and scanning it with the scanner in the bookstore and seeing that it read everything correctly. It was I didn't know if it was it was my first time. I didn't know if it was going to work or not. So we got some options here. Under symbology, we're going to come down here and we're going to choose ISBN. And it's going to fill in a sample one just to show you the default spacing. These dashes are kind of a default spacing. And this number is very important. That 5 is, if you, the 5 means like it's not a real number, basically. This is the price of your book. And the 5 you ignore, and this book would be $22.50. These are the numbers that matter. So my book is going to be $15. I would have that 5 and then 1500. That's space there in case the book is, you know, in the hundreds of dollars, which I've seen a couple of books like that in my times as a bookseller. But this is just, it's neat to know this so that when you see a book, you understand that that's what this number means. And it's so that while the price is reflected in text above the UPC, this gives the scanning machines of bookstores a way of knowing what the suggested manufacturer's retail price is right here. Your UPC or your ISBN you're going to get from, okay, so back in CreateSpace, this is where you're going to get your ISBN. And you can copy this if you want instead of having to, this is the way I put it in. I copy this, everything but the 978, since that's going to stay the same. And I paste it in here, but I just have to memorize before I put this in here that the second to last of these 3 numbers and this one, I'm going to set aside with dashes because I'm going to lose those dashes. The other way to do this is to write your number down and then enter it in and leave the dashes in place. But I can remember where those were. Right here, right here, right here. All right, so that's my ISBN and my price in place of theirs. I can leave these options the same. I'm going to scale this up. And the reason I do this is going to make the UPC, which will be generated down here, it's going to make it bigger. But by making it bigger, when I move it into my document and scale it down, it keeps the resolution very high. I'm going to click Make Barcode. And that's my UPC code. That's what's going to go on the back of my book. And you can see there are different options here for downloading it. So the PNG is nice because it has a blank background. So I'm going to do that one. Barcode PNG. So when you go back into InDesign and with this layer highlighted, I've got all the other ones locked so it can't go anywhere else. I'm going to go to File, Place, and I'm going to choose that barcode that I created. I'm just going to click anywhere because it's going to put it in much bigger than it needs to be. Also, when it creates that image, it really squeezes the text. I like to drag this out a little bit, and you can see that it gives the it kind of shows the rest of that number. It's very, very tight when it creates that. So I'm just going to make that box a little bit bigger. And now I'm going to scale this down, and preview is selected. So let's see. I just put in random numbers and see what looks right. You can keep doing this as long as you want. It looks, I'm gonna do 13.5%. I can drag this down on top of my box. If I didn't get the size of my box right, that was handy. See, when I drag that out, it showed me, hey, now it's the same width. Those green arrows are saying that's the same width as this other element. Love that about InDesign. Plop this right on top of it. And you'll see when we create a PDF how nice this looks. And something that MS Corley, Michael Corley has done on my books that I think looks really good is to create this little text box here where you just put in fiction, $15. In order for your book to be accepted into some bookstore chains, I believe Barnes & Noble still has this policy, the price needs to be printed. It's not enough just to have it here in the code. It needs to be printed, so that's a nice little touch. So there might be some other elements you do here. You could put your author shot and a little bio. You can figure all that out. It's pretty easy. But the main thing is just setting up this page with your spine width being correct, laying in your art, putting all of your typography on a separate layer, laying out the spine, and then generating that UPC with that great website and laying that in, again, on its own layer. Using these layers is really, really important. What's nice about it too is, you can turn individual elements on and off. You could create a second spine layer, you're not sure which one you like better, and work on it completely separately. You could duplicate this spine layer and have one called spine 2, and then you can bring your spouse in and turn one off and the other one on and say which one do you like better. It's very useful to work like this. So, there's some more work here to be done, but I'm going to go ahead and output this because I think you can figure out how to do everything else. I'm going to go to File, Export, Shell Collector, Exterior, that's all right. Hit Save. Know where you're saving this so you can find it. The one thing we're going to do differently here, when we exported the interior, we exported pages. And so each page is going to be printed separately. When they print this, your exterior, it's all printed on one piece of paper, a thick cardstock. So you need it to be all joined. You need this to output as just one PDF, not 3 different pages. All you have to do is click Spreads, and it's going to print basically what you have right here. This is one spread. So select that and hit Export. All the other options there, the 300 DPI, all that's standard. So as soon as I hit Export, it opens this up in Reader, and I can see, again, very basic. I could do a lot more to make this spine look better, and a lot more on the back here, but I've got a great framework, and I've shown you how to do the UPC code. This will scan with any barcode scanner. Not bad. Now, one thing you could do here, I showed you how to export this as a spread. You could also go back here and export and do Shell Collector front cover and do this in pages and hit Export. And when you do this, you're going to let's see, single page view, zoom out here. So it's basically printed 3 pages, your back, your spine, and your front. But this gives you the ability to just look at your front cover, and maybe this is something you do while you're designing. I could have centered this a little bit better, and don't forget, adding something up here. But you could also, by doing this, you could save just this front page. You could, in InDesign, you could export just that page 3 basically, and get your cover art that way for your ebook. Another thing you can do is use that entire spread and just crop out that, or you could go to File, Save As here, and save a separate ebook cover document, and then delete these 2 pages. Well, bad thing about that, you got to make sure you keep your cover art. So again, I'm just showing you this really quick. This is just something you could do in order to, so I just dragged the cover art so that it's now in this page. And hopefully that means when I delete this guy and the spine, so I basically just created a separate InDesign file, and then I could export this as a JPEG or a PDF. But just something to think about. I'm not saying it's necessary, but it's something you could do. And that's it. By thinking about your print cover instead of your ebook cover, when you select your cover art, you're able to lay out a nice print book that's going to have the same art across the spine, which is a great look. It's really the way you should do this. So you don't, if this is trimmed incorrectly, you won't have any breaks or any jarring graphics from one to the other, from the front to the spine to the back. And by laying it out properly, you also get your nice cover art. So that's it. Hope that's useful. That should wrap up these videos for book creation. So thanks for tuning in.